There didn't seem to be enough content that bridged the gap for them and helped people take that first step. There are so many people desperate for remote jobs, and there is a huge undersupply. So if anything sounds too good to be true, it probably is. The human might only get involved once you pass a certain level of gullibility threshold. I've seen us from Skype through to Claude, and honestly, the trajectory has never been more exciting.
Hello. Welcome.
Welcome back to the Nomad Summit Podcast. And for the first time in a very long time, we're full house now. We're all the team back together. Alexandra, Christoph, myself, Palle Bo, and the fourth person is actually also somebody who's been on the podcast before. First of all, Christoph, Alexandra, good to see you. And then our guest, Maya Middlemiss. Hi, Maya.
Hi, it's good to be back.
Maya has not only been on the podcasts, but also on the Nomad Summit team with our event in summer 2026 in Estonia, the remote work edition, where Maya was contributing a lot, especially around the content and picking the speakers. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Maya, this was like your first venture into events, right?
It really was. Before that, my experience of events was just being a speaker where you just float up on the day and all the hard work has been done and it all just seems to happen by magic. So this was my first opportunity to see behind the scenes how that magic happens and be part of the team pulling it together. And I learned so much from that. It was an amazing experience.
Yeah, and I wasn't able to go, Maya, but now between you and me, did they put you to work?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot, right? Because I've never been involved in events before, and there are so many little things and there are so many small things that come together really late in the day that, you know, I'd never seen that whole shape of it before. So I admit there was a lot to do, and particularly involving lots of other people who aren't having the same stake in the event. So trying to pin down the speakers. The team did an amazing job with volunteers. It's just incredible to see it all come together. So there was a lot to do, but there was also, it kind of made sense, and each step taught me something new about the total process and what goes into putting on an event like that.
What was the most surprising thing that you did, where you thought, I didn't see that coming?
I don't think it's so much not seeing it coming. Let me think. I suppose one of the most difficult things for me with a storyteller background was trying to deal with all these incoming pictures from speakers and trying to shape that into something that made sense and then try to fit that into an order, because it's like an editorial job, really, when you've got different content submissions and trying to shape that around something that's got to fit in a venue, in a program, and you're having a keynotes day and a workshops day, and some people can only be there on one of the days. And yeah, all of those little sort of 4-dimensional jigsaw pieces, the complexity, I didn't quite see that coming. I kind of thought that there'd be millions of people just with their hands up who'd all be perfect. And they were perfect, believe me, the ones that we ended up with. But there was quite a bit of jiggling and juggling. And could you maybe make that into a workshop instead? Or could you angle that more like this to make it more actionable rather than just inspirational and things like that? That I didn't expect quite so much engagement with the speakers, but I think it was definitely worthwhile.
And what a welcome it was for the first time having a Nomad Summit event in Europe. So that means after Asia and the old ones before COVID back in Las Vegas and in Cancun, we can now surely say Nomad Summit is a multi-continent event series.
And here we need some celebration sound.
Yay!
It was definitely a very different experience from what we usually have with our main Lighthouse event in January in Chiang Mai, in different dimensions. I mean, at first we went to a new city, new continent where we haven't organized an event before. And I'm quite glad that the collaboration here on the event side of things with Alexandra and me now has settled into a little bit of routine. So we know each other's capabilities and we can 100% rely on each other. But plus, Maya coming in with the special angle of that event. It was the Nomad Summit Remote Work Edition. And that's where Maya brings a lot to the table with her initiative, Remote Work Europe. So maybe, Maya, for those who missed the event, what was that special angle about and what's Remote Work Europe?
Well, I've been to lots of different Nomad events over the years. I've not been to Nomad Summit.
Now you have.
Now I have. But before that, I often felt that the thing that was missing was the work. I used to meet people at events and there were this camp of people who already got it. They've got the income or the business or the employment to unlock the lifestyle. And there was this whole other tranche of people who really wanted it. And there didn't seem to be enough content that bridged the gap for them and helped people take that first step, particularly getting that first remote job or getting a job, even if it's their existing job, to unlock the freedom to start off working from home and then start working from wherever they want to. So I was really excited when Christoph and Alexandra said they wanted to do an event looking at remote work and looking at the thing that makes the whole lifestyle possible. So that was the interesting and really unique curriculum aspect of this, that it had to teach people something. It had to help people actually come out of each session thinking, well, I learned something there that I could actually apply, take that home to work with me, use that in my own life and make it part of my plan. And I think that was the most exciting thing, was that the speakers who really got that, and they brought their receipts, they brought their plans, they brought their stories and really showed people what they could do with their own lives. And I think the feedback from the participants reflected that. And yeah, I hope we're going to get more feedback in the future from people who've actually put this into action and will come back and tell us about their new careers and their new lifestyles.
I was just thinking before we started recording this, what I would like to talk about and how this event in Europe felt in comparison to the one in Chiang Mai. And that difference in audience was what stood out to me as well. The people were just different. And then I was thinking what made them different, because at first it was just like the feeling and the vibe, let's say. And then I thought, yeah, it's because most of the people that we meet in Chiang Mai have already made it to some point of their remote career. They're all across different stages, but at least they've made it to Thailand, let's say. So they are somewhat travelers already. And the audience at Nomad Summit Tallinn was very different. And it was so genuinely interesting to meet people who have office careers, which, I don't know, to me is like such a weird concept now. Like, what do you mean you work in the office?
You mean you work at an office? What?
What is an office? And see them being inspired and being excited and seeing that spark in their eyes when they realize that, oh my God, it's actually possible to have a remote career and to travel and have more freedom in your lifestyle.
What was definitely interesting and different between our audiences is the social media use. The event is now a couple of weeks ago, and still, whenever I open my LinkedIn in the stream, there's still a new post about the Tallinn event. I think Instagram didn't really play a role. It was all LinkedIn. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's really proof of concept in a way that we managed to get the message right about what they should take away from this kind of event, because we had whole presentations about your portfolio and how you show up online if you're in the market for remote work. And I think we had at least 3 presentations that emphasize LinkedIn as the place to do that. And the fact that people took what they learned from this event and then took their time, they weren't just like in the moment vibes, but they thought about it, reflected on what they'd learned, wrote some really thoughtful and interesting posts, tagging people and sharing their takeaways and what they got from the event. I think for me, that was like really brilliant social proof that we help people raise their game there and become visible, not just to us, but hopefully to whoever's going to give them their first or their next remote job.
Yeah, it was especially interesting to see the people who haven't been posting on LinkedIn before get active on it after the event. And even with these comments, like, when I was at Nomad Summit Tallinn, I promised myself that as soon as the guys will post the gallery from the event, I will make my first post on LinkedIn, or like I will come back to LinkedIn after a while that I haven't posted.
I'm just thinking maybe for the people listening, there might be a few in between that are thinking, How was the Estonia event different than the Chiang Mai event?
Absolutely. Glad you're asking, Palle. So while the Nomad Summit brand and our main Lighthouse event is a platform for everyone on their entire journey from employment to remote employment to being a freelancer, a founder, a business owner, an investor as the final step, like this traditional classic journey to location independence and financial freedom. With our first European edition, we decided to focus on the first two of these pillars, of these steps. And that's also why this partnership with Maya's initiative, Remote Work Europe, was kind of a match made in heaven.
I agree 100%. I think it's a fundamental distinction between where people are on that ladder. The people higher up are much, much more location independent in mindset and lifestyle generally. So you think, there's an event, I want to go to that event, and then you look at where it is. Whereas if you're still in a job, even if it's a job where you get to work from home or work quite flexibly, you tend to be fairly locked into that mindset of where it is, what's a reasonable travel from there. You might travel less generally, so you're less confident or interested in going to new places, possibly. And you might also have a constraint of actual availability. And, if you're on 4 weeks annual leave or something, people have to plan around that as well, because this isn't the kind of thing that a lot of people could take to HR and get funded, something to help you leave your job and go and work somewhere more flexible. Might not go down very well. So this is very much self-funded by employees, I think, to attend. So that's something that, even though the cost of the tickets was actually, I thought, extremely good value, the cost of the overall travel for a lot of people from further afield. I mean, I know for me, there are no direct flights to Tallinn from anywhere. I ended up on a ferry at one point. So that might not be the most accessible destination for everybody.
Yeah, that's definitely where we are a little bit spoiled with Chiang Mai, where the overall bigger picture is quite different. No one is flying from Europe to Chiang Mai just for our event, but it's people who are used to or who are planning for the first time to work away their winter season, the cold, ugly season in the Northern Hemisphere, and go to Asia, spend a month or more in Thailand and around to explore and work remotely with quite an affordable surrounding. They're hosting an event in the best season for that in January in Chiang Mai is much, much easier, of course.
So are you saying that it would have been better to have had it in one of the big hubs, one of the big cities in Europe, let's say Berlin, London, Amsterdam, Madrid, would it be, or Barcelona? Would it be easier if it was a place where people didn't need to look at a map? Where's Tallinn?
At least better connected, I would say. Yeah, not so much. I don't think it's so much about the size of the city. The size doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's what I keep saying.
A key takeaway that came very surprising for everyone, probably even for the person who said it in that moment. That was Maya. No, as we have that here, Maya, when you were saying that from stage, it felt a little bit like you just a second later realized, oops, did I just say that?
Size doesn't matter.
Just meant to pick up on that. Size doesn't matter when it comes to the city, all right? It's what that city's doing. What makes that city attractive and magnetic and brings people towards it rather than putting them off. That's what we need to focus on.
And the more you said, the deeper the hole you were digging. So,
absolutely. Yeah. All right. I'll stop digging now. But it is a serious point, because I think there's definitely an interest in going to a new location. And I know a lot of people who, when I post about traveling to Estonia quite regularly, quite often a reaction I get is from people, oh, I've never been there. Even people I think of as quite well traveled. And, it's not a kind of place you go to without a specific reason. Whereas for something like this, I don't know if it would be easier to give people somewhere more central. I think transport connections is probably the key thing. And we've got to find a city with the right balance of direct flights from a lot of other places, but not being astronomically expensive.
Right.
So that's the challenge for the future.
Yeah, and definitely Tallinn also has its appeal. It's not like it's impossible to get people there. We had people flying in all the way from New York. There was one attendee who came across the pond for the event.
Yeah, we actually had such a cool geographically diverse audience of people who did actually make it in the end.
Yeah, there were people from Italy, a small group where I think a co-working space owner had found the event and spread it in her local community and brought a bunch of people. On our opening evening, I met a lady that flew in from Kenya. And I think the distance record would have been an Indian person who unfortunately just in the last moment did not get the visa in time and couldn't attend. But yeah, we have definitely gotten some attention from a very wide geography. And so, yeah, it's definitely not impossible to market a destination like Estonia, but it needs some extra effort, definitely.
Yeah, we had a bunch of people coming from the UK. We had a lady from New York, as you mentioned, and we had this couple from Texas who actually planned their whole European trip with a Nomad Summit event in Estonia as an anchor. So they didn't come directly from the US to Europe for the event, but they planned their European trip like in a way to get to Estonia for the event.
And we had this Brazilian couple that had bought a ticket, but then decided not to come because as a result of our own success, they had been to the Chiang Mai Nomad Summit. And they're from Chiang Mai. They were among the first to buy the ticket for the Estonia edition. But then in the aftermath of Chiang Mai, they were actually doing an extra, they were basically overstepping the step of remote work and freelance, and inspired from what they learned in Chiang Mai and from the people they met and all the toolkits they got there and the new mindset, they decided to build their own thing.
Fantastic.
The Estonia special content was not relevant anymore.
I think that really shows the filtering, that this audience is really diverse and people's needs are very specific depending what stage they're at. And it's fantastic that Nomad Summit now offers both, and people can look at it, the whole thing, and think, what bit is relevant for me right now? And it could be that somebody, I don't know, could graduate from Tallinn to the Chiang Mai and move up the ladder over time. That's what we hope. Or people might be very happy with a job that lets them work from home and do some workations occasionally. I love that people can really design their own path according to where they want to be.
Maya, can you tell us a little bit about what it is that Remote Work Europe does? How do you help people? And who are the typical people that you help?
Well, as I have to reply to a lot of emails and direct messages every week, we're basically a media and information company. The one thing we don't have is a special secret stash of remote jobs.
Oh, no.
I know,
But
right?
that's the only thing everyone needs.
Yep. But there's an awful lot more that most people can do to help themselves before they're ready to even begin applying for one. So we provide a lot of information about how to position yourself, how to improve your skills, how to use LinkedIn, how to come to the right events, what you need to learn, what remote work is and what it isn't, how to protect yourself from scams. We also connect with partners who've got specific professional skills around things like remote work visas, digital nomad visas, what you need if you're going to be relocating.
So as far as I know, you have groups in different countries, right? You have like community leaders and people meet in person in different countries in Europe, right?
Oh, no, we don't meet in person. We're all remote. No, seriously, I'm very bad at the face-to-face thing. It's all started off in Spain because that's where I am. And it started as a Facebook group in Spain. And that's still a big part of our socials. So we've got separate Facebook communities for different countries with volunteer moderators because some issues are different in Europe. That's what I love about Europe. You can drive for an hour and be somewhere where the law, the language and everything is completely different.
Right.
So it is important to have a group in France that deals with stuff about your freelance taxes in France that I have no clue about. but other things about how to do remote work well, how to provide community and support for each other and things that we do at the mailing list and website level. And we have got a job club where we handpick leads for people and share that every day. So we've got this low-cost job seeker community where my colleague goes through and actually looks at what people are looking for. Again, we can't guarantee they're going to get them, but she goes and finds out which companies are hiring in Europe, either through employers of record or their European enterprises and so on. And so we do deep dives there on who's hiring freelancers in Europe or who's hiring employees in Europe and so on. So yeah, it's growing all the time. We have mostly people on social, it's Facebook. Still, we've got about 12 Facebook communities, but the main really active ones are Spain, UK, and Sweden. Ireland is chugging along nicely. I've got a huge community in Greece with nobody to help me moderate it. If anybody wants to put their hand up for that, because I can't really moderate comments in Greek, oddly enough. Really, it's a community-led thing. When people ask questions and get involved and so on, that's how it grows. And in Spain, there's a lot to figure out in terms of the administration and the structures, and the lifestyle is really worth it once you get through all that. So that's why Spain's always been the biggest focus for me. Okay.
Let's give away one of those nuggets as a teaser here. You mentioned you help people to recognize scam. What is a typical scam scheme, and how can you avoid it?
Well, I suppose it's like scams anywhere else in life. It's being aware of that needs fulfillment and that gap, because there are so many people desperate for remote jobs and there is a huge undersupply. So if anything sounds too good to be true, sadly, it probably is. And it's very much easier for scammers nowadays. We know what amazing things we can create with AI, for example, but it's what used to be much more work is now the work of a few minutes for a scammer to set up effectively an entire jobs website to use to steal your personal details is a fairly typical one. You know, people are coerced or persuaded into handing over all sorts of personal information that they shouldn't, because they think there might be a real remote job at the end of that. And unfortunately, that's the one we see most often. Things like people being persuaded to pay for equipment for their amazing new job. Send the deposit so that we can send you your laptop, or things like that, or the massive overpayment that bounces. It's all the same old scams, but in 2026 clothing, it's likely to be dressed up as something pretty sophisticated, and it's big business as well. It's quite depressing. I've written quite a lot about it. I even have a keynote about it, but a lot of events don't really want you talking about scams, unfortunately, but they're very, very real. I've spoken to a lot of victims, even people who've had outright identity theft, and it's cost them huge amounts of not just money, but heartache and grief as well. So yeah, don't let your guard down, however desperate you are for remote work. Do the due diligence as you would anywhere else.
Are they typically coming in through the email, or is it also if, say, you find a job posting on LinkedIn or another platform?
In terms of scams, LinkedIn, sadly, is absolutely rife with them. And I can't say to anyone, avoid LinkedIn, because the good stuff's there as well. But unfortunately, anybody can pay to put an ad on LinkedIn. They're not vetting them. You know, people think, oh, it must be legit because it's on LinkedIn. Unfortunately, definitely not. You'll probably find more scams in your inbox on LinkedIn, though, than in the jobs feed, because it's very, very easy to write a scraper that just says, oh, we're really interested in your work in whatever, and we've got this role for you. You know, there are lots of red flags you can look for, because that recruiter, they might not have a very detailed profile. The recruiters do not use Gmail addresses. They don't invite you to come and chat on Telegram. There's all sorts of red flags, but they can be further down the line. It's like the dating scams. You know, there are people who are employed or coerced themselves to spend a lot of time on that relationship building. And the same people who are involved in ripping people off through spurious romantic propositions, it's exactly the same thing and just a slightly different script for somebody who's trying to find remote work and finally believes that this amazing person who's the answer to their prayers has got in touch in their DMs and gradually breaks down all of their suspicions. It's really sad.
And I bet the scammers, they use a lot of AI now, so you might even be chatting to a bot to begin with.
Oh, yeah. The human might only get involved once you pass a certain level of gullibility threshold, you know, because it costs nothing to send out 2 million DMs on LinkedIn on a throwaway account, and then you only engage with the ones who look like they might actually pay money. I'm not going to tell people how to do it, but this is all public domain discoverable. People have fallen for it and lost a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who've ended up being trafficked themselves into what they thought was a job in a country with more opportunities, and they've ended up working in these call centers because they speak some English.
Yeah, I see a lot of that, especially in Asia, where people would come to a job in Asia, or like people from poorer countries or people from Europe as well, actually. And then they end up being locked and kidnapped.
So, Maya, is there something optimistic, something good for the future? I know that it's a tough world we live in right now. There's a lot of people struggling to find work. But where do you see the future going?
The thing I'm most excited about is the technology that we have for remote work. I've been in this game for literally decades now. I've seen us from Skype through to Claude. And honestly, the trajectory has never been more exciting, but the possibility of what you can do with that, what people can build for themselves, what people can find for themselves. It's not all about jobs anymore. People can create and launch things more quickly than they ever dreamed. And it's more and more possible for people to do things that don't depend on where they are, that don't depend on a formal education, training that they might not be able to access, things that might have never been possible for somebody from their background before. It's not easy. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it's possible. And we have tools like the information offered through Remote Work Europe, the training and events through Nomad Summit. All of that's out there. There's tons of free stuff out there as well. If you have the time to wade through it all, you can learn to do anything. You can create anything that you can imagine. And we've never had that before. So yeah, I am really excited about the future and all of that it holds, despite everything else the world is facing at the moment. For individual operators to seize control and forge their own path, it's never been a better moment.
Good answer. Very optimistic.
And before we wrap up this episode completely, Christoph, there's something exciting happening next spring.
Absolutely, Palle. Yes, after having the remote work edition in Estonia this year, we have committed to have a founders edition in Switzerland end of May. Of course, still as a satellite event to our main lighthouse event in Chiang Mai, where everyone comes together in the world capital of remote work on the third weekend of January. But we are leaving Chiang Mai for another very special edition where we want to bring together around 20 founders for a week in the Swiss Alps to work together on leveling up their business.
Fantastic. So like a mastermind, they'll all support each other and solve each other's problems and come out with something shippable at the end. That sounds an amazing event.
Yeah, and then I can imagine a mastermind with a view.
Yeah, the views are very good.
Yes, the views there in the mountains are incredible. Our partner, Philip, who is part of the extended Nomad Summit team, runs a co-living there that is like halfway up from the valley. So it's in a little village that can only be reached with a, what is the word in English? Funicular?
Yeah, a little train, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a train that is like being pulled up.
Yeah, it's funicular. You'd say the same, but you don't say it that often in English. So there's not so many of them around.
Funicular.
But I think that clear mountain air is going to inspire a lot of founders to come up with new insights.
Yes. The air gets extra clear there because there are no cars in that village. Because you can only get there with the funicular to like half the elevation between the peak and the valley. From there, you can just walk around in the village, go higher up the mountains, and enjoy the people that are there with you, inspire each other, and get things done.
And we will talk a lot more about that in the future. So just stay tuned to this podcast and make sure that you don't miss any, because that's exciting stuff. And I really hope I can make it to that one.
And if you can't wait until May in Switzerland, of course, get your tickets now for the Chiang Mai event. We are rising prices very soon, so tickets won't get any cheaper than they are today.
Everything happens on the nomadsummit.com. Maja, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
That was a pleasure. Anytime.
This episode of the Nomad Summit Podcast was hosted by Christoph Huebner, Alexandra Mosnitska, and Palle Bo.
No hash.
The theme music was by Diviash Shea, aka Divi the Audio Nomad.
สวัสดีค่ะ
And it was produced by me, Palle Bo, of radioguru.co.uk.